Hey guys, increasingly homeless looking Scott here, and today I want to talk about Dead by Daylight's balance and how basically every discussion that's being had about the balance from the community and the devs and the players, um, all of it doesn't really matter. It's all completely invalidated by something, and I'm sure you've seen basically every content creator talk about this. I made a video about this years ago, and it still stands up till this day. But the reason all these discussions are basically irrelevant is because of map design. Still, map design is the sole factor that basically just invalidates anything that the devs are really trying to do to make the game in a more balanced state. As much as they're trying and addressing things like camping and tunneling and slugging, and they're planning solo queue improvements and things like that as well. As much as they're planning on doing all that stuff, it doesn't really change the fact that none of it will ever be accurate if it's so dependent on the map that people are on. For example, if I have somebody that, let's say I'm playing Wesker, and for whatever reason, I keep getting like Larry's or something like that. Wesker is notoriously pretty bad on Larry's because he just can't use his power like ever. There's just a window every 2 feet. There's a pallet. There's a corner. There's another corner. There's another corner. No line of sight. It's very, very hard to use Wesker's power on that map if you even can at all. So you could play Wesker 5 times on Larry's and then come to the very fair conclusion, man, Wesker kind of sucks. You don't really ever get to use his power. That sucks. However, you might have another guy playing Wesker who gets Shelter Woods 5 times in a row, and he's just destroying everybody because he's, obviously going to be very strong on that map, as most killers are. And he's going to come to the conclusion that, damn, Wesker's really, really strong. And the thing is, they're both correct at the same time. And the sole determining factor there is the map that you get. And that is why, like, it's so silly to have, like, even... I just make videos, for discussions because I think the discussions are interesting and it's fun to talk about stuff. But really, when I talk about it, it doesn't matter because it's so easy for both sides of the argument to be right depending on which map that you get. Like, you can have Shelter Woods with 7 pallets and the game with 24 pallets, and they're in the same game being balanced on the same spectrum. That is asinine. That is ridiculous that they're being compared as if they're in the same video game. Those are two completely separate games. The game map itself is one of the most perfect examples of a map that has basically no skill expression whatsoever from either side. Killers basically can't do anything versus the very strong god palettes. They just have to kick them. And if there are no more by the end of the match, then they usually win because there's nothing else to use. And survivors can't really do any looping skill expression whatsoever because you just pre-drop the god palettes and then run to the next one. That's all you do. Like, no one expresses skill whatsoever on this map. So no one can tell whether something is overpowered or underpowered or not because it's just no skill is being expressed whatsoever. You can't. And we need to get to a point in the game where there's far less disparity in the maps. And I know they're capable of it because if you guys remember several years ago, it was about 3 years ago now, I think, there was a update called The Realm Beyond. And in this update, they fixed a lot of the problematic structures in the game, like the Ironworks of Misery window, Fractured Cowshed window, the Grim Pantry window, like a lot of these really problematic structures they redesigned in such a way that they removed these god windows that were ridiculous. So they're capable of doing it, like, and they touched multiple maps in the same time. And I'm not talking like, we get one map rework every 3 months or something like that. In this patch, they touched multiple maps, and it was great. It was universally seen as one of the best map updates the game has ever had, and it was awesome. So they're capable of doing it. But the problem is, and I think this is what they have to change, the rate at which they fix maps to be a lot better is the same rate as which they add shitty new maps. So nothing ever actually gets fixed ratio-wise. They fix something and then they just throw another shitty one on top of it. And then we're in the same boat again. So what I think they really need to do is just stop making new maps. Just unless there's like a licensed content that it's required as part of the deal to have a new map, I can see that and that's fine. But for the most part, just stop making new maps. The aesthetics team, the music team, the honestly, the perk team, like everyone is doing for the most part a pretty good job lately. But the map design team has always been terrible in this game. Let's just face it, it's just always been really, really bad. As seen by the last couple of maps that they've added, Eyrie of Crows, Garden of Joy, they're just really bad maps. So every time they fix an old map to be a bit more playable, like Haddonfield, they just throw another shitty one on top of it, so you still have an equal chance of getting another bad map again. RPD Rework is another one that's an example of something that's just really bad. So every time they make a new map, it's just clear that they're just not doing good enough, in my opinion. So they need to stop making new maps and just work on, just work on the older maps, just like they've shown that they can do before. And if we get to that point where the maps are a lot more balanced, then we can really start having discussions on balance that makes sense. Because as it stands right now, you could have someone saying that Pig is overpowered if you get Shelter Woods and bad box RNG. And, you can have someone saying that Blight sucks ass because, you got the game or something and there's not much you can do. Like, it's so sad that both of these scenarios can be true without argument. It just depends on the personal experience of the person. And I'm really tired of maps being the main determining factor of whether or not something is underpowered or overpowered. And the game can never truly balance itself until we address the vast disparity in map strength for either side. It never feels good losing, like when you load them into a map and you just think, hey, I'm going to lose. There's nothing I can do. I loaded on Fractured Cowshed. I'm just going to lose. That's pretty much it. It's such a shitty feeling knowing that the game has decided your fate for you and you don't even get really the chance to do anything. That needs to go away. And I don't think there's any quick way of doing it, but there's a quicker way of doing it. And it's quicker than, just doing one map rework every couple of months. Do more Realm Beyond type updates where they tackle multiple maps each update and then stop fixing or stop, adding new maps. And I think we could eventually get to a point where there are more good maps than bad maps. And now we can have a fair time. Like if I get Coal Tower or Wrecker's Yard or like any of the maps that are considered to be like pretty fair for both sides, and I lose on those maps, I have no complaints other than they just outplayed me. Because there's not much of an excuse on those maps. They're small enough to where killers can pressure. There's enough pallets for the survivors to actually use and loop, so there's still gameplay on both sides. But if I lose in a map like that on either side, killer or survivor, I usually can't complain because I feel like it was fair. The person just played better than me, or they were just better than my team overall, or whatever. And there's no problem with that. But if you get a map like Bad and Preschool, where every single area you go, you've got a building with multiple god pallets, it just doesn't feel like you're even playing the same game. And both sides can be correct about whether or not something is overpowered that they're currently playing. And I think they incorrectly misattribute it to perks and survive with friends and killer strength and stuff like that, when really this, not sole factor, but the vast majority factor is the map itself that they're currently playing on. So that's it. I think they need to do more Realm Beyond style updates to really address the balance of this game, or it'll never really truly be balanced. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.